Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Mike Force Podcast. Hope you had a good week and a good weekend. If you're listening to the Preaching to the Choir episode every Sunday, appreciate that support. I'll be doing it no matter what. I know a couple people at least had problems with it, but if you got a problem with me talking about God on Sundays, don't tune in. And I encourage all of you just to give it a shot. You don't have to be religious to gain valuable insight on something that might help you, because most of it is me talking about things that I'm dealing with in my personal life. Me being vulnerable. It's an exercise in helping me build myself, which hopefully you come along for the ride. Today we're talking about the truth about the P320 via the company news segment on Sig's website via their statement on this goat rope of these guns going off. We'll talk about that and also some scenarios, some situations that happen in the country, one in Michigan, one in Arkansas, where in one case, self-defense changed the outcome. The other situation where the lack of self-defense impacted directly the outcome where two people were tragically killed. Big shout out to Carnival for sponsoring the podcast. We'll say thank you so much. Top sirloin beef, freeze-dried, pork, chicken, and beef. I eat clean when I'm overlanding, off-roading. I'm going on a moto trip with my buddy tomorrow. Like, I want to eat clean when I'm on the road. Constitute it for 5 minutes in your favorite salt. Redmond salt's really good. Their seasoning packs are amazing. Or Snake Eater from Firecracker Farms, one of my favorite salts. Constitute it for 5, cook it for 5. Actually cooks in about 3 to 5 minutes with your favorite fat. I like tallow, and I also like butter. Big fan of both. And you got a really good meal that's super clean instead of all the sodium and crap that is in camp food. I'll link them down below. Big shout out to carnival.com. Guys, this Sig thing is out of control. Let me give you a little history or context about my relationship with them. A lot of people have asked me, hey, you used to be sponsored by them. Talk about them. Well, that's kind of true. So when I did a marketing deal with Sig now over 3 years ago, which lasted a year, the objective was very specific to what my company was doing. The company Fieldcraft is focused in survival, mobility, preparedness, and we were really doubling down on expanding preparedness into families, into women who typically weren't the prepper type. And when we opened that and started doing content, education focused in that arena, we started building a market that Sig wanted, because a lot of their market obviously is going to be men. And so that took a lot of convincing. I had several meets with them. I met with mostly marketing, but I did sit down with the CEO and was brought in with open arms. Kyle Lamb, who I've done stuff with in the past, podcast, speaking engagements, vouched for me. And what I heard on the back end, just being fully transparent, is when I did my marketing deal, that payment for me wasn't for me. They weren't sponsoring Mike Glover. They were sponsoring a vast market of people that took a decade to accumulate at Fieldcraft Survival. And what I heard on the back end from people who are very good friends of mine, because this community of tactical instructors and subject matter experts in that field is very small. A lot of guys at Sig, from according to others, not according to me, because I like all the guys at Sig. I did like all the guys at Sig. They were telling me that a lot of the guys were upset because they found out how much I made from Sig. And that still mind blows me today, because I get it. I mean, if you don't understand business, well, you think, how is Mike making all this money from Sig? Well, I wasn't making any money from Sig. I mean, I guess by proxy, I was making a paycheck for my own company. My company was making the money because it was a company investment diversified across a marketing apparatus, not my Glover. And I also told them I don't like to be obligated making promises that I can't deliver on for a specific product or manufacturer when I don't have 100% buy-in. I'm not representing anything that I don't know. And that was the bottom line. And they agreed. So there was no pressure on me as an individual to come out and be like, hey, check out the new whatever. We helped roll out several weapon systems to include the 365, I believe it's the nomenclature is P as in Papa, 365X macro. It's a compact pistol that has a compensator or a red dot in, I believe, the X model of it with a 17-round magazine and a small form factor. The IP, the tech was in, the innovation was in the magazine and the spring to be able to retain 17 rounds, double stacked, in a small form factor. Amazing innovation, solid engineering, and to this day, my favorite carry pistol. Like, no doubt. With that being said, at the end of our contract, as things died down, we changed courses of action. And there was a whole bunch of things on the back end, which I'm not going to bore you with, but I was pretty offended because people were coming to me saying things that I did not really like. And a lot of it was from different people. But again, I don't spin rumors. Like I honestly don't have the time. I rather spend time with my kids. Like I don't have time to deal with the drama in the tactical space. And guys, you know it. You see it at SHOT Show, you see it online. The drama in the tactical space, because it's full of egotistical people, is so obscene. It's like, okay, we get it, man. Like, okay, yeah, you're the best. Oh, yeah, he sucks. You're the best. Like, Lord. And it's just the nature of that industry, which I despise, by the way. I don't deal with the tactical and gun space because I don't like the industry. I like the people in it. Brandon Herrera and Mike Jones and all these dudes. Like, I love these guys. Donut. I love all those dudes. They're really good guys. I hate the industry because it's cutthroat and it's ugly. And this is an example of that. Let me read you a little bit about what's called the truth about the P320. And I'm reading from their website, from SIG's website, on their statement that was issued from Newington, New Hampshire, from their headquarters on March 7th, several months ago. And I'm going to go through this, but I'm going to tell you when I'm clipping through it, and I'm not going to change the verbiage or the words. I'm going to read verbatim. And I quote, "The P320 cannot under any circumstances discharge without a trigger pull. That is a fact. The allegations against the P320 are nothing more than individuals seeking to profit or avoid personal responsibility." It goes on, and I'm skipping some stuff. It goes on to say, claims that unintended discharges are anything more than negligent handling and or manufactured lies to support an anti-gun, anti-SIG agenda are false. Furthermore, lawsuits claiming that the 320 is capable of firing without the trigger being pulled has been dismissed in courtrooms around the country. Now, I don't know if that's completely true. You guys tell me. A lot of you guys are tracking this in real time. And I believe there was a lawsuit that was settled where the person who sued won. Now, they knew this because that was before this article was written, but maybe they're just saying that it wasn't proven in court and they settled out of court. I don't know what they're saying. It goes on to say, in addition, multiple plaintiffs, so-called experts, have conceded it is not possible for the 320 to discharge unless the trigger is fully actuated. The rhetoric is high. This is from the next paragraph. The rhetoric is high, and we can no longer stay silent while lawsuits run their course. And clickbait farming, engagement hacking grifters continue their campaign to hijack the truth for profit. Enough is enough. And they go on to say in their last sentence, industry, take notice. What's happening today to SIG with the anti-gun mob and their lawfare tactics will happen tomorrow at another firearms manufacturer and then another. Today, for Sig Sauer, it ends. Okay, here's a couple things. That position, I don't know who they have writing this. I would have loved to see if they would have wrote who wrote it. Like if the CEO wrote that, then you would know. The CEO is a former Israeli defense officer. I met with him, and I like him. He seems like a really nice guy. There's not too many people at SIG that I've talked to that I don't like. In fact, there's nobody at SIG that I talked to that I don't like. Max Michelle, Dan Horner, all these guys in marketing, they're like really good people. The problem is this messaging is absolutely the wrong tactic because it frames this narrative that whoever is suing, whoever is going through investigations, whoever is looking at the P320, like they're the enemy. Why would they be looked at as the enemy when they just are doing investigations via things they're observing? Now, furthermore, it was just announced that they're suing, Sig Sauer is suing a Washington State, I believe it's academy or department, based on something that was released in February of 2025, which this is why SIG responded. The report, which I'll link down below, is called the Sig Sauer P320 Pistol Report, February 2025. Written by the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission. And I assume these are the recipients of the lawsuit from SIG. But let me just go down. This is a long document. I don't have time to go over the whole thing, but let me go through the problem statement. That it says problem statement on the first page. It's actually page 2 after the cover page. It says problem statement. This institution experienced a critical safety issue with the SIG during a fall patrol academy. There's an abundance of information, not all credible, circulating through the public sphere regarding safety issues with the SIG. It is imperative that this report reflect the best intentions and objective efforts to discern between fact and fiction, providing a comprehensive overview of the event. In other words, an investigation. So they go through and they have workshop members and dates of participation. Guys, they have like 50 people listed. I mean, it's not 50. It might be 25. It's a lot. Actually, let me do a count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 10, 20, 30-ish people listed. All senior law enforcement officers, including range masters, lieutenants, commanders, firearms instructors, program managers, applied skills training, division managers. Competent people, I'm sure. Is there some incompetent people? For sure. But in this case, what I'm saying is likely based on what I'm observing via reading this report, they're not out to get SIG. There's no incentive for them to do that. They just need to be objective with the truth and then get to the bottom of what happened. So in the event summary, they say on October 9th of 2024, there was a class participating in firearm shooting drills at the Regional Academy located in Spokane. As the recruit drew his pistol, I'll paraphrase this. A cadet was drawing his pistol, and when he drew his pistol, he says that the rear of the gun, the slide of the gun, bumped into his vest, which he says the back plate of the slide of his SIG bumped his vest, and it discharged the firearm. He was backed by the instructor who was looking over him, who observed his trigger finger at the time the gun went off, landing into the concrete, spalling, and then injuring 2 people. He looked at his trigger finger, and it was extended on the frame. He didn't have his trigger finger inside the firearm trigger guard. So that's what he said. Now, Did that happen? I don't know. But again, they're doing an objective analysis of the event, and they do work group content summary and considerations. So here's some of the considerations. In SIG, these are all matters of fact. The following topics were addressed or explained by the SIG representative. So they had the conversations, and the SIG rep talked about it. Sig Sawyer, $2.3 million lawsuit and judgment. Montville Police Department, PD incident, firing in holster, 24 July 2023. Milwaukee Police Department, video shows unintended shooting injury of Milwaukee officer. Connorsville, Indiana Police Chief, involuntary accidental discharge due to foreign object. Deployment history, drop safe upgrades in 2017. 17 legal cases spanning from 2022 to 24. The Sig P320 and variants, the 17 and 18, the M17-18 service pistols, and the Sig Sawyer P320 transporting the firearm, wrong modified damaged holsters, etc. A whole bunch of appendixes to this investigation. The SIG representative provided the following summary conclusions. The SIG 320 can only fire if the trigger has been depressed, which they say is 5 independent actions. No SIG pistol ever discharged during the Sig Sauer drop test. No SIG 320 pistol revealed any evidence of fire control unit parts, slippage, primer deformation, or discharge during independent lab testing. The work group summary comprised of firearm industry suppliers and experts. There is no indication that the members from stakeholder agencies were authorized to speak on behalf of the representative agency beyond an offering of their professional opinion. The opinions opposing the prohibition of the SIG 320, M17, and 18 will be delineated as against and those in support. The con. There was a clear theme offered by the work group members against the temporary prohibition. The presentation by SIG's representative was clear and convincing that they cannot fire those weapon systems without the trigger being pulled. And the organization doing this investigation could provide no evidence to the contrary. Other work group members concluded that the Washington State organization uncommanded discharge as a mistake of the BLEA recruit, equipment management, safety protocols, human body mechanics, or other obstructions affecting the draw. In addition, they suggested that perhaps the firearm instructor needed additional training. Although not widely supported, a work group member opined that the online videos are propaganda created by George Soros, even though the members against the prohibition offered no evidence or contrary information. They passionately argued against any video depictions, news articles, civil judgments, and personal testimonials from military law enforcement. That is a problem. That is a problem when every single piece of evidence you just defer that it's George Soros and this grand conspiracy. Let me continue. The critical findings. Here's where it gets important. The amount of information available on SIG's 320 is abundant, which creates challenges to reach consensus for or against a prohibition or restriction. In the final analysis, the report eliminated videos and articles from private content creators since the work group could not establish the veracity or the legitimacy of the content. The report and its appendixes include content and footage members could reasonably validate, such as body-worn or police body-worn cameras, surveillance video, etc. The decision of the organization to temporarily prohibit the use of SIG, P320, M17, or 18 was done out of an abundance of caution for the safety consideration of recruits and staff. Okay, it was made. So what's the problem? Well, the problem is the work group determined that a recruit was reholstering the P320 and reportedly properly indexed when the pistol discharged into the concrete floor firing in the range. Additionally, 6 military installations, uncommanded discharges involving 320s, M17s, and 18s have occurred since 2021. The most significant event was documented at an Okinawa military base because of their impeccable maintenance and training records. In addition, clear and convincing video capturing the events, only mentioned in the final report, which absolved the security guard of negligence. meaning there was videos that showed and demonstrated that this was happening without negligence in the role of the shooter. So it's really crazy to me that you wouldn't err on this side of both caution and also err on the side of believing your constituents. And I say constituents because these people are bought in. When an organization picks up a SIG, an acquisition, they're bought in. They're not anti-SIG, and then they pay millions of dollars for the entire department or the entire federal institution to get SIGs picked up. Like, the idea that you're attacking the same people who are advocates for SIG for you is insanity to me. And so that's the wrong position. Look, I've dealt with products not in the scale of SIG because SIG is massive. But when I deal with people and they're like, hey, this sucks, you might want to listen. And once you start filtering through one or two people, you might go, oh, it's just isolated incidents. But when you start getting dozens and then hundreds of complaints, a lot of those turning into lawsuits with video evidence, included in the support of the temporary prohibition in the Department of Defense fiscal year 17 annual report, it outlines the results of the drop testing of the M17 and 18 for the Army Modular Handgun System, the MHS, which they were awarded. SIG was awarded. In summary, their testing revealed that strikers struck the primer, causing a discharge. SIG implemented an engineering change proposal to correct this deficiency by implementing lightweight components in the trigger group. We understand that this was a thing. It was a thing on the internet, the interwebs. They're not drop safe. And now it's something else. If you go on and do your due diligence and research, there is also evidence that SIG is outsourcing the manufacture of some parts, and I'm going to say some and be vague because I don't have the exact numbers here, but because of how big the contract was, they had to outsource some of the parts overseas, and that was done with India, including some P320 components. The interweb says up to 35% of the parts in the gun. Now, they're all assembled in New Hampshire, but there are parts that have been outsourced, and that makes you wonder. I like SIG. They make good products, but their position on this one specific P320 is wrong. And one of the things that I'm alarmed by is now that an airman just a few days ago was killed allegedly by a gun that had an uncommanded discharge. That's a new coined term, I think, invented for this circumstance. I've never heard of guns just magically going off because it's not a thing, especially at an institution, a government institution, because there's checks and balances leading up to the award of that contract, right? Well, if it wasn't serious before, it's getting serious now. Law enforcement agencies, including military organizations in law enforcement and service-wide, are abandoning this gun because they're erring on the side of caution, which is the right answer. Until we figure it out, we need to shelve this thing. How is that going to work out long term? I don't know. But what I will say is I don't understand us not paying attention to, if it's not broke, then why are we fixing it? Why are we trying to reinvent the wheel here? The Glocks that I use on active duty were completely fine. Even the Berettas. As an 18 Bravo, I fixed a lot of Berettas locking blocks because they would constantly break. But normally, I mean, just as a pistol, as a backup, because it's not your primary weapon system, it did okay. When we went to Glock, it was bulletproof. I have never fixed as an 18 Bravo on lots of ODAs, Senior Bravo in the entire company of B23, the third group SIF. I've never seen a Glock break. I've never seen it malfunction. and I certainly have not seen it magically go off. So they have a PR issue, and how it's going to unfold is up to the clients, the customers, and you. Many gun ranges have been putting out memos and messages on social media that they will not allow any P320s to come on their range at any point. M17 and 18 as well, if you bought those. Overall, every weapon system that I use from Sig has functioned properly. And I've never owned a P320. I had a Legion, I believe, a Legion version of it for a period of time, but I didn't shoot it. I just had it for self-defense for a period of time. They make good rifles. They make good 300 blackouts, the MCX. They make good subguns, and they make the X macro is like bulletproof. But this P320 and this M17 and 18, it's problematic, guys. I haven't talked to Sig in years. I wish them all the best. They dropped me like a bad habit when I started going through legal things, but also they were moving on from us anyways. I mean, that's what they said. There's no harm, no foul. There's no ill feelings that I have towards Sig, except I think they're handling the P320, M17, and 18 issue the wrong way. If it was me and I was in charge for a day at Sig, I would do a press conference. I would not sugarcoat anything, and I would take it seriously. If there's allegations that are being made against Sig, against me, in this instance where I work for Sig, I would take it very seriously and not point the finger and blame people who are being shot in the leg by their own pistol, nor the institutions that are trying to investigate objectively, or in this case, this airman that's just lost his life. They need to come out, they need to speak the truth, and they need to be humble in that position. That's my take on it. Guys, self-defense-wise, tragic circumstance that happened in Arkansas. In Arkansas, they had two people, 43 and 41, a married couple that were walking with their 7 and 9-year-old kids, happened to be daughters, and they were attacked. This guy, 5'10", 6 foot tall, white, slender build, long sleeve shirt, rolled up or pulled up. He attacked them, killed them. The girl survived, and then he took off in his sedan. His sedan was apparently a Mazda sedan with a license plate that was taped over. Look, I don't know the motivation of why somebody would go into a state park in the middle of the day and kill somebody or kill a couple, but it seems like it's deliberate. Another major issue I have with this specific circumstance is this family was walking in a state park where likely there was a sign that said no guns allowed. Carry guns. Protect yourself. If that father had a pistol, or even the mother, both of them had a firearm to defend themselves, they'd be alive. Alternatively, in a situation where an attacker had a knife, a buck knife, a folding knife that was a buck knife, looked like a buck knife, he opened it up and went on a stabbing spree in a Walmart, stabbed 11 people, some he critically injured. It looks like all of them are going to survive, which is a miracle. And he was stopped by responsible citizens who were willing to put their lives on the line. Now, the sheriff came out and immediately thanked his officers and said they were heroes. Okay, I can kind of get on board with that, but I don't think they're heroes as much as they're just doing their job. And they arrived 3 minutes after the initial call, which is fast, good response time. But you are your own first response. You're on the X where the bad thing happens. And so when that happens, when seconds in the moment reacting to something count, those law enforcement officers are minutes away. If it wasn't for the responsible citizens, one of them picking up his firearm and holding and locking that guy down in the parking lot with other men who are deciding to take circumstances in their own hands and defend life, there would have been a lot more casualties. Thank God for those guys doing what they do. Lastly on this, one of the most dangerous self-defense scenarios to be in is a guy with a knife. If a guy has a knife, you automatically think psychologically, oh, they just got a knife. Maybe I could talk them off the ledge. If they're in the vicinity of you and can touch you, they could stab you. One puncture wound in your chest cavity will potentially kill you. And the complication is you get stuck once, you can't treat that unless you get a higher level of care. I mean, you could mitigate the damage and temporarily stabilize the victim on the way to the hospital, but a hyphen chest seal, mandatory in that case. Needle decompression if it's a longer term kind of circumstance or they're struggling for air. But there's a whole bunch of complications when you get stuck in the chest cavity because you'll bleed internally. You can't stop that bleed. You're puncturing potentially vital organs, including the pump house, lungs, and all your intestines and organs and liver and everything else. Very dangerous to be around somebody with a knife. Here's my recommendation, which I've never recommended before, and I have to now. Take knife fighting classes. Because if you take a knife fighting class, you know how to defend against a knife attack, and that's important. I used to make fun of people who did knife stuff, and I've done it before because I'm like, why would I ever get in a knife fight? You never take a knife to a knife fight. You take a gun to a knife fight. But in this case, if you understood the defensive strategy because you understood how the attack is taking place, well, then you could defend yourself against it. The best way to defend yourself against it is with a pistola, just being flat out honest. Lastly, guys, I got a show this Wednesday at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time with Survival Dispatch. I will link that show down below so you guys could join me. But I'm doing probably every week a show with Chris Heaven from Survival Dispatch. A really cool panel of diverse backgrounds talking about whatever we're talking about. I think this week it's domestic terrorism. If you like this show and you like what you're listening to, come check out my Patreon. I'll link it down below. Till next time, guys. Peace.